Ladies and gentlemen, this fight is 3 rounds in the APFC Flyweight division. Sponsored by Carbliss, handcrafted cocktails. And now introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, a mixed martial artist standing 5 feet 6 inches tall. He stepped on the scale and officially weighed 126.2 pounds. And he steps into the cage with a record of 3 victories with 4 defeats. And he is fighting out of Lafayette, Indiana, Danny Dirty Dan Martinez. And across the cage, his opponent fighting out of the red corner, a mixed martial artist standing 5 feet 4 inches tall. He officially weighed in at 126.2 pounds, and he comes in tonight with a record of 4 victories with 5 defeats, and fighting out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, Abimael Martinez. And your referee in charge is Chris Claviter.
Chris Claviter, third man inside for this 125-pound fight. Danny Martinez in the black and white trunks and the blue gloves. Abimael Martinez in the white and black trunks with the red gloves. Round number 1 underway.
As I said early, Martinez is not going to waste his time. Excuse me, Dirty Dan Martinez is not going to waste his time getting after it. Abimael doing a great job making adjustments, looking to clinch up his opponent and slow him down.
Dirty Dan landed a big right hand moments ago. Frenetic grappling exchange. Submission attempt from Dirty Dan potentially, David.
Dirty Dan looking for the darce. He has the lock. It looks like, however, his opponent did a great job breaking it, just staying content on that double leg here. Abimael, he just needs to do what he's doing now. Slow his opponent down. You fight at a frenetic pace, anything can happen here.
Knees on the inside and a right hand on the break. Dirty Dan connecting with a rear uppercut that backs up Abimael. Nice shot from Abimael.
Dirty Dan fights dirty, man. I mean, just throwing combinations from shooting from the hip. Abimael a little bit more deliberate in his approach, setting up his shots, keeping his head in. Defense looks good. However, a head kick slides through there for Dirty Dan.
Big looping shots from Dirty Dan, which historically, right, sometimes maybe easier to get out of the way of her counter, but it's such unorthodox and awkward angles that Dirty Dan's throwing from. Abimael rendered a bit out of depth here defensively.
I believe Martinez at this point is just kind of overwhelming the synapses of Abimael. You know, he's throwing a lot at him, and I think Abimael just wants to slow it down.
Dirty Dan, guillotine submission. 60 seconds on the clock, a lot of time for Dirty Dan to crank away.
Abimael just kind of fell into that guillotine attempt, shot in with his head down, and that happens. However, he's able to work out. Now he's on top in a much better position to control his unorthodox opponent.
And some good time on the clock for Abimael to elicit some ground and pound, score some points on what has been a pretty competitive round so far.
Abimael, he needs to do a better job of his head position here when he's on top working in the guard of Dirty Dan Martinez. He needs to keep his head in the center of his chest, keep his hands off of the mat. We saw we saw Dirty Dan go for that guillotine choke, and it looked like it was in, and it looked like it was in tight. So let's not keep our head to where, you know, maybe he reaches up and gets it with very little effort.
Final 10 seconds here in round number 1. Abimael on top, but not much significant ground and pound or posturing up.
Yeah, I mean, Abimael got into a great position, but it looked like he was just he was okay just kind of laying and praying, so to speak. He didn't do much damage. We didn't see hand control. We didn't see him advancing to try to pass the guard here.
This replay brought to you by Cat's Law. Dirty Dan Martinez just swinging, forcing his way into the pocket. Abimael dealing with all of this as best he could, David.
Shades of Dan Henderson there from Dirty Dan Martinez. He threw up that high kick, looked for the big right hand on the opposite side, just marching forward, just looking to finish his opponent. Abimael was able to shoot, able to get the takedown. Once he solidified the position, didn't do much there. So if I'm in his corner, I'm saying, hey, maybe we won the round with control time. I don't know. It's kind of hard to judge. But when we get in those positions, we have to make them count.
Can't be complacent, control time, stalling, walling, no longer should get you that win. Dirty Dan Martinez smiling ahead of round number 2, taking a deep breath. On the feet, he clearly has the striking upside, David.
Ready. Round 2, fight!
I'm not sure. I mean, he definitely has more output. I don't believe he's a necessarily better striker. His striking could be cleaned up a little bit. I mean, I like his approach, don't get me wrong. I just don't think Abimael is able to get off at any point. And that strategy works for Dirty Dan Martinez.
Abimael forced to shoot a takedown. Dirty Dan Martinez reversing the position nicely early in round number 2.
Looking at this fight, I believe Abimael is just mentally overwhelmed. He's getting in positions to where he just kind of freezes, and that's when Dirty Dan Martinez keeps going.
Nice return to the mat from Abimael, but I agree with you. The pace and the pressure that Dirty Dan has been trying to set is difficult to acclimate to.
For sure. Now, I'm not sure that Dirty Dan is technically a better fighter. I just think that mindset, that pace, that pressure that you speak of is just overwhelming for Martinez. And so when he gets in these positions, and it shows, he just wants to hang on. I think he's trying to slow the fight down so he can start thinking through these positions. But when you're in a fight, you can't think, you just have to do.
Especially as an amateur with the 3-minute rounds, this dissolves quite quickly. And if you don't do anything significant or impressive to alert the judges, hey, this should be my round, one move from Dirty Dan can steal it on the cards as he tries to reverse with a Kimura.
Speaking of one move, beautiful transition for the Kimura. Look for him to step over the arm, I was going to say, but he was looking more for full guard. He's definitely the type of guy, he's going to go for it all, even position-wise on the ground here.
There is a penchant for violence from Dirty Dan Martinez. Lafayette's own, punching his way through as we hit the 60-second stretch of round number 2.
Dirty Dan in a much better position now on the ground with Abimael on his back. However, Mael working up, and we saw him throw in the Darce early on in the first round. So look for Martinez to go for that neck at any moment.
45 left on the clock. Round could still be up for grabs. Abimael throwing the right hand, going for the takedown, eats a knee for his troubles. Now Abimael Martinez busted open and bloody as Dirty Dan goes for the head kick.
Dirty Dan, man, I like his style, man. This dude he's like a street fighter, bro. He does not care. He throws punches in bunches, looping punches, looping kicks.
And I love that little inside kick that he does to close distance and set up some of these strikes with his hands, using his legs intelligently. Final 10, Abimael, leg kick, stiff jab. Now a right hand on Dirty Dan Martinez. Third and final round up next between these two talented flyweights. In my estimation, Abimael Martinez will need a stoppage. This replay brought to you by Pettis Martial Arts. Again, just good work from Dirty Dan, attacking all levels.
I agree. Dirty Dan did a great job throwing that leg kick, which opened up some more strikes up top. However, Abimael has been defaulting essentially whenever he's overwhelmed to the shots. I mean, that wasn't the most technically proficient takedown, but he got the leg, he snatched it up and got to the ground. However, Dirty Martinez flipped the script here on Abimael with that beautiful Kimura transition, almost established a full guard. When they got back to their feet, it was much more of the same. We see a few more strikes there from Abimael Abimael, but however, Dirty Dan Martinez tends to control the fight on his feet. He's overwhelming his opponent. Abimael Martinez is more so reacting than being proactive in this fight.
There were shades of success in the striking for Abimael in the closing moments of round 2. Am I crazy for thinking that a good suggestion would be fighting fire with fire?
You're not crazy at all, and that was more so what I was speaking to. He's getting overwhelmed, and he wants to slow it down and saying, hey, let's have a technical fight. Dirty Dan Martinez wants to fight, and he wants to fight dirty, and that's the only way he's going to do it. So Abimael Martinez needs to just open up and embrace the chaos that is happening right now.
Already early exchanges from both guys. Looping overhand right from Martinez, can't find a home. Dirty Dan applying that patented pressure.
Dirty Dan Martinez marching forward, throwing punches, throwing strikes, keeping his head down.
Abimael on the bike now. Dirty Dan cutting off the cage. Beautiful shots from Dirty Dan. Abimael just seems a bit outgunned here as he goes for another desperation takedown.
What I'm seeing right now is there's a gift and a curse when you're an intelligent fighter. Sometimes when you get in positions as an intelligent fighter, what you're going to do is problem solve and troubleshoot. But you don't have the time to do that. We can't sit here and analyze. We need action if you're with Martinez. He's in a good position now on top. However, he cannot analyze. He cannot try to think and see what his next move is. He needs to create action. He needs to move. He needs to punch. He needs to do whatever he needs to do in the moment.
Don't grab that cage. Get your finger out of the cage.
Dirty Dan Martinez maybe leveraging the cage a little bit to lock up those toes tighter as we find the final 90 seconds of round 3.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying there, man. If the ref doesn't see it, did it really happen?
And the reality is Abimael Martinez needs a stoppage, but currently he might be locked up in a bit of a tricky spot here against Dirty Dan as he pops out, finds himself in side control.
Referee Chris Kavita was able to spot the toes in the fences, gave Martinez a little pop there to get him out. And now Abimael Martinez working from side guard here.
But the reality is control time is only going to lead to a decision loss. Abimael needs to go. If there's ever a time to empty the tank and punch it, it's right now for Abimael.
You know, the judging is much like life right now. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it. Right now, he has the control time, but he's not doing anything with it. So I look at a Martinez on his back who's working and, you know, throwing strikes from everywhere, and I could give him the round simply because of that.
That's a very grand quote from you, David Evans.
You know, I try to be a little philosophical when I can, Ben.
Much like life,
wisdom.
It's all about your reactions. Abimael bringing Dirty Dan up to the feet. 10 seconds to go. Can Abimael try and put some exclamation point on this one? No threat here to close out this third and final round in all likelihood. Lafayette, Indiana's Danny Martinez has evened out his amateur MMA record. Pretty fun grappling display by both guys, though. Excellent ebbs and flows in that one. Each guy had moments. Just feels like Dirty Dan was a bit more, I don't want to say more polished, but more effective in all areas.
More effective, definitely had more output. It was definitely interesting to see the contrasting in styles and personalities in this fight. I think Dirty Dan is great. I don't know if he necessarily outclassed Abimael Martinez. I don't know if he's technically the better fighter. But he did fight better tonight because he did just that. He went out there, took the fight to him, was throwing punches, throwing strikes, and every moment when he was on his back, he was always looking for a way out. Activity was the key word for Dan Martinez, and I think that's going to give him the victory.
And he's got a great chest piece as well. I mean, we have to acknowledge the ink that Dirty Dan has got. It's clean.
Reminiscent of a Conor McGregor tattoo. I think he just switched the animals there. I think McGregor has a gorilla. He tends to have a bear coming out of the bushes there.
Dirty Dan Martinez raising His arm seemingly victorious. Well, let's find out the official decision by sending it inside to handsome Michael Hansen.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds of action, we go to the scorecards. And the judges scored the fight 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27, all for your winner by unanimous decision. Out of the blue corner, Danny Dirty Dan Martinez.
Dirty Dan Martinez evens out the record, now 4-4 as an amateur mixed martial artist. Finds his 2nd victory in a row, 2nd win in 2025. This calendar year has been good for Dirty Dan.